The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been raging for 3 hours before Ambassador Park Ji-woo finally arrived. The massive circular chamber buzzed with angry voices, translators working overtime to convert dozens of languages into coherent streams of outrage. Representatives from 12 major species occupied their designated platforms, each hovering at different heights according to their homeworld's traditional status markers. Ji-woo walked calmly through the entrance, her simple black suit standing in stark contrast to the elaborate robes and ceremonial armor worn by most delegates. She carried only a slim datapad and wore the faint smile of someone who had heard all this before. Her security escort, 2 human marines in dress uniform, took positions by the door as she approached the human platform. The Kralthian war leader, Korthax, noticed her arrival first. His scaled face flushed a deeper shade of crimson as he pointed one clawed finger in her direction. Finally, the human deigns to join us. Perhaps now we can receive answers instead of continued insults. Ji-woo stepped onto the human platform, which rose to eye level with the Kralthian position. She sat down, crossed her legs, and began scrolling through messages on her datapad. The chamber fell into shocked silence at this display of apparent disinterest. Ambassador Park, the Velkari trade minister said, his 3-part beak clicking nervously. We have been discussing matters of grave importance. The Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding human expansion. Unanimous, Ji-woo said quietly, not looking up from her messages. That must be a first. Please continue. Korthax slammed his fist on his platform's control panel. You mock us even now? We offer you one final chance to hear reason before the consequences of your species' actions come due. No. Ji-woo finally looked up. Her dark eyes swept the chamber with the mild interest of someone observing an interesting but not particularly important event. I'm listening. War leader. What consequences are those? The Nethran scholar, Velkor, floated forward on his cushion of anti-gravity fields. His aged voice carried the weight of authority. The Council has documented 17 violations of established expansion protocols in the past galactic standard year. Humanity has colonized 6 worlds beyond your designated sectors. You have constructed 42 defensive platforms in neutral space. You have refused to share faster-than-light navigation routes, despite 3 formal requests. I see, Ji-woo said. She set down her datapad and folded her hands in her lap. And, Korthax roared, you will cease this aggressive expansion immediately. You will dismantle your illegal fortifications. You will open your navigation data to Council review. Or the combined might of the Galactic Council will respond with appropriate force. The chamber erupted in supporting declarations from most of the assembled delegates. The Thetkai hive delegates, thousands of component insects, buzzed in agitation. The crystalline Sharen chimed their agreement in resonant tones. Even the normally peaceful Dendari rustled their leaves in what passed for militant support. Ji-woo waited for the noise to die down. She checked her datapad again, sent a quick message, then looked back up at the assembled council. Are you finished? Korthax's scales bristled. You dare. It's a simple question, war leader. Are you finished with your prepared statements? I'd like to respond, but I don't want to interrupt if there's more posturing to come. The Velkari minister made a calming gesture with his primary wings. Ambassador, please understand the gravity of this situation. The Council does not make such declarations lightly. We are asking for compliance with basic galactic law. Ji-woo stood up, smoothing her suit. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, carrying easily through the vast chamber. Let me make sure I understand the accusations. First, expansion beyond designated sectors. The sectors you're referring to were suggested boundaries, not legal restrictions. We checked. The actual treaty language says, recommended initial colonization zones. We've been recommending ourselves some new zones. She tapped her datapad, and several holographic displays appeared in the center of the chamber, showing treaty documents with highlighted sections. Second, defensive platforms in neutral space. 42 platforms, yes. built after 3 separate attacks on our colony ships by unidentified raiders. Attacks we reported to this council. Attacks that received no response, no investigation, and no justice. We decided to handle our own security. The displays changed to show incident reports, damage assessments, and casualty lists. Korthax looked away, but several other delegates leaned forward to study the data. Third, navigation routes. Those routes were discovered by human survey ships, mapped by human crews, and are maintained by human relay stations. We'll happily share them as soon as we have formal trade agreements establishing mutual access to equivalent data from Council species. We've submitted that proposal 4 times. It's still pending review after 18 months. Ji-Woo closed the displays with a gesture. She walked to the edge of her platform and looked slowly around the chamber. The Council expected me to come here afraid. You thought humanity would panic at threats of force. You believed we would apologize and beg for mercy. She smiled slightly. I'm curious why you thought that. Because you are 1 species against 12, Korthax said. Because you are newcomers to the galactic stage. Because you have not learned your place in the established order. Our place, Ji-Woo repeated. She nodded slowly. I see. Well, let me be clear about humanity's position. We don't want war. We came to the stars, looking for friends, for partners, for the chance to be part of something larger than ourselves. We still want that. She paused, and her voice took on a harder edge. But we won't be threatened into submission. We won't dismantle defenses that protect our people from very real dangers. We won't stop growing and exploring because it makes you uncomfortable. And we certainly won't bow to ultimatums delivered by a council that can't even protect shipping lanes in its own territory. The chamber erupted again, but this time in confusion rather than unified anger. Delegates turned to each other, whispering urgently. The Velkari minister fluttered his wings in distress. Ji-Woo gathered her datapad. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going back to my embassy. You're going to discuss this among yourselves. If you decide you actually want war, that's your choice to make. The human species has survived ice ages, plagues, asteroids, and countless wars with each other. We'll survive whatever you decide to throw at us. She stepped down from the platform and began walking toward the exit. Korthax shouted after her. You cannot simply walk away from the Council's judgment. Ji-Woo stopped and turned back. Her expression was patient, almost sympathetic. War leader, I'm not walking away from judgment. I'm walking away from a tantrum. When you're ready to have an actual conversation, to negotiate like adults instead of issuing threats like children, humanity will be here. We'll be exactly where we've always been, ready to talk. Ready to trade. Ready to be your partners. She gave a slight bow, a gesture of respect that somehow also conveyed absolute confidence. But we won't be your subordinates. Not today. Not ever. Think carefully about what you really want before we speak again. The 2 Marine guards fell into step behind her as she left the chamber. The massive doors closed with a deep boom that echoed through the suddenly silent space. 12 species of delegates stared at each other, none quite sure what had just happened. The human ambassador had been threatened with total war, and she had hardly cared at all. The human embassy station orbited peacefully in neutral space, a modest structure compared to the Grand Council chambers. Park Ji-Woo entered through the main airlock to find her entire staff waiting in the reception hall. 24 faces turned toward her with expressions ranging from anxiety to barely concealed panic. Lee Min-jun, her junior attaché, rushed forward. Ambassador, we monitored the session. They threatened war. Actual war. Shouldn't we be preparing evacuation protocols? Sending warnings to the colonies? Ji-Woo walked past him toward her office. Min-jun, bring me tea, please. Green. The jasmine blend. Everyone else. War room in 15 minutes. She disappeared into her private office, leaving her staff exchanging worried glances. Min-jun hurried to prepare the tea. his hands shaking slightly as he measured the leaves. In her office, Ji-woo allowed herself a long breath. She stood by the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12 species were probably arguing about what to do with the human who had dismissed their threats. She permitted herself a small smile before sitting at her desk and opening her secure files. Min-jun arrived with the tea, setting it carefully on her desk. "Ambassador, with respect, how can you be so calm? Sit down, Min-jun." Ji-woo gestured to the chair across from her. She took a sip of tea and nodded in appreciation. "Perfect temperature. You're learning. Ambassador, do you know what I did before I became a diplomat?" She didn't wait for an answer. "I was military intelligence, 15 years analyzing threat assessments, studying foreign military capabilities, running war game simulations." "Do you know what I learned in all that time?" Min-jun shook his head. "I learned that the loudest threats usually come from the weakest positions. The truly dangerous enemies don't announce their intentions. They just act." She pulled up a file on her display. 6 months ago, Human Intelligence completed a comprehensive analysis of Council military capabilities. What we found was fascinating. She turned the display so Min-jun could see. Rows of data scrolled past. Ship counts, weapons specifications, training records, deployment logs. The Galactic Council hasn't fought a real war in 340 years. The last major conflict was the Valkyrie-Sharen trade dispute, which lasted 6 weeks and involved exactly 2 battles before both sides agreed to arbitration. Min-jun studied the data, his expression shifting from fear to confusion. But their fleet numbers are massive. The Kralthians alone claim 800 warships. They claim 800, yes. They actually have 412 in any kind of working order. Of those, maybe 150 could be deployed within a month. The rest are either in long-term storage, being used for training, or serving as ceremonial vessels for state functions. Ji-woo pulled up another file. The Kralthians are the warrior culture of the Council. They're the most militaristic species in the Alliance, and they haven't fought a real battle in 3 generations. She stood and walked to a wall display, bringing up a star map showing human territory. "Now look at us. We've been in space for 82 years. In that time, we've fought 4 border wars with pirate coalitions, suppressed 7 separatist uprisings, and dealt with countless smaller conflicts. Every single colony world maintains an active defense force. Every human military officer has actual combat experience, or trains under officers who do." Min-jun was beginning to understand. "We're ready for war, because we've never stopped fighting small wars." "Exactly." Ji-woo returned to her desk. "Earth was what we call a death world. Everything on our planet was trying to kill us for millions of years. We evolved to survive that. Then we spent 10,000 years fighting each other, developing better and better ways to wage war. We only unified as a species 70 years ago, and even then, it took an external threat to make it happen." She pulled up historical records from Earth. The Council species evolved on gentler worlds. They reached the stars earlier because they spent their energy on science and exploration instead of war. That's admirable. That's actually beautiful. But it means they've forgotten what real conflict looks like. Min-jun leaned forward. "So the threat is empty?" "Not empty. They could mobilize for war if they wanted to. But look at this." Ji-woo showed him economic analyses. The Valkyrie control 60% of galactic trade. A war would destroy their economy. The Nethrin are scholars who value knowledge above everything. War means losing their brightest minds. The Thetkai are a hive intelligence that operates by consensus. Getting all their sub-minds to agree to sustained military action would take months. She brought up simulation results. "We've run every scenario. Best case for them, they could mobilize maybe 40% of their claimed forces. Their weapons are functional but based on 300-year-old doctrine. Their tactics are all theoretical. Their logistics chains are designed for peacetime efficiency, not wartime redundancy. H1. And us? We could deploy 95% of our fleet within 2 weeks. Every ship has combat-tested systems. Every crew drills for actual battle conditions. Every colony has bunkers and defense grids built expecting the worst. Jiwoo set down her teacup. We don't want war, Minjun. War is terrible, but if they force it, we'll win. Decisively. Tress. Minjun sat back, processing this. So, when you walked out of that chamber, I was calling their bluff. But carefully. If I had humiliated them, if I had pointed out their weakness publicly, they might have felt forced to fight, just to save face. Instead, I gave them an exit. I made it about respect, about partnership, about choice. But you weren't afraid. Jiwoo smiled. I was afraid of what would happen if they actually were stupid enough to start a war. I was afraid of how many people would die, how much would be destroyed, how many years it would take to rebuild trust. But afraid of losing? No, not even a little. There was a chime at the door. War room is ready. Ambassador. Jiwoo stood, smoothing her suit. Time to brief the others. Remember, Minjun, the goal isn't to win a war. The goal is to make them realize they don't want to fight one. In the war room, her senior staff waited around a long table. Military liaison, Commander Chen, Trade Specialist, Dr. Okafor, Intelligence Officer Petrov, and Cultural Expert Professor Yamamoto all stood as she entered. Jiwoo took her place at the head of the table. We need to discuss next steps. The council will spend the next few days arguing among themselves. Some will want to back down. Others will want to escalate. Our job is to give the reasonable voices ammunition while making the warmongers think twice. Commander Chen spoke first. Our fleet commanders are ready. If you need a show of force, not yet. Maybe not at all. Petrov, what's your read on council unity? The intelligence officer pulled up profiles of key delegates. Fracturing already. Velkari are calculating economic costs. Nethrin are researching human history and getting worried. Thetkai are debating internally. Only Krothians are solidly committed to confrontation. Good. Let them fracture. We'll wait 3 days. Let them stew. Let them argue. Let the reasonable ones convince the others. Dr. Okafor raised a hand. And if they don't? If they actually mobilize? Now, Jiwoo looked at each of them in turn. Then we show them exactly why we weren't afraid. But I don't think it will come to that. They're angry right now. Embarrassed. But they're not stupid. Give them time to think, and they'll see the same numbers we see. Professor Yamamoto, an elderly woman who specialized in alien psychology, spoke quietly. There's wisdom in letting them save face, Ambassador. In their cultures, backing down from a public threat is deeply shameful. If we give them time, they can frame it as choosing peace rather than fleeing from danger. Exactly. Jiwoo stood. We wait. We watch. We prepare for every possibility, but hope for the best one. Fear works both ways. Right now, they're starting to fear what war with us would actually mean. We let that fear do its work. 1. She dismissed the meeting and returned to her office. Alone, she composed a message to her family on Earth. Her daughter would be worried. Her mother would be praying. She told them the truth in simple words. Everything was going to be fine. Because Park Ji-woo knew something the Galactic Council was just beginning to understand. The scariest warriors were the ones who had seen real war and chose not to fight. In the private chambers of the Krothian delegation, war leader Korthax paced like a caged predator. His advisors watched nervously as their commander's scales shifted through colors indicating rage, humiliation, and barely contained violence. The human mocked us, mocked me, before the entire council. his tail lashed against a ornamental pillar, cracking the stone. "We cannot let this stand." His second-in-command, a younger warrior named Velthar, approached carefully. "War leader, perhaps we should consider her words." The human seemed very confident, unusually confident. "Bluffing," Korthax snarled. "Humans are newcomers. Weak. They speak boldly because they don't understand the reality of galactic power." In another section of the council station, the Velkari Trade Consortium held an emergency meeting. Their conference chamber was filled with the clicking and whistling that made up their native language. Trademaster Ketral addressed his senior merchants. "Calculate it. Calculate what war would cost." He projected economic models into the holographic display. Humans control the Sagittarius shipping routes. They've established refueling stations on 6 major transit worlds. Their colonies produce 17% of the refined metals we use in manufacturing. One of the younger merchants spoke up. "But, surely, if the Council acts together, then we lose trade with humanity and spend resources on a war that produces nothing but debt and dead soldiers." Ketral's beak snapped shut with finality. "The numbers don't work. They never work. War is bad business." In the scholarly halls of the Nethran section, a very different conversation was taking place. Young analyst Silenth had been assigned to research human military capabilities. What he found kept him awake through 2 sleep cycles. He requested an urgent meeting with his mentor, the ancient scholar Velkor, who sat on the council proper. The old Nethran floated into the research library, where Silenth had spread his findings across multiple displays. "Master, I believe the council is making a grave error." Velkor's expression remained neutral. "Strong words from one so young." "Explain." Silenth activated the first display. "I have been studying human history as requested. Their homeworld, Earth, is classified as a Class 9 death world. Only 3 known species evolved on worlds that harsh. The planet tried to kill them constantly. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, predators, diseases, famines. We know humans come from a difficult world. That makes them resilient, not dangerous." "Let me continue, Master." Silenth pulled up more data. "They didn't just survive their world. They conquered it. Every other species on Earth became subordinate or extinct. Then they started fighting each other. For 10,000 years, constantly, the displays showed human conflicts throughout history. Tribal warfare, ancient empires, medieval sieges, industrial slaughter, modern precision strikes. The scope was staggering." Velkor floated closer, his aged eyes widening. "This can't be complete. No species fights itself this much and survives." "That's what I thought. But it's verified from their own records. They fought over territory, resources, ideas, religions, pride, revenge. Sometimes they fought for no clear reason at all. They developed increasingly sophisticated ways to kill each other. Weapons that could level cities. Strategies that could starve millions. 2. This life. Dawn. Silenth opened another file. They only unified 70 years ago, when they encountered the first alien species. And even then, they had 3 small civil wars during the unification process. "Master, humanity has been at war somewhere in their territory almost continuously since they reached the stars." "Small wars," Velkor said, but his voice was uncertain. "Border conflicts with pirates. Look at the records." Silenth showed incident reports. 3 years ago, human colony ship attacked by Krenth raiders. 12 Krenth ships versus 1 damaged colony transport. The humans fought for 6 hours, destroyed 8 raiders, drove off the other 4, and saved 90% of their colonists. 2 years ago, separatist uprising on New Jakarta. Human peacekeepers suppressed it in 11 days with minimal casualties. Last year, the siege of Outpost Keller. 40 humans held off 300 pirate infantry for 2 weeks until reinforcements arrived. Velcor was silent, studying the data. Master, I accessed our own military assessments. The last time the Kralthian fleet engaged in actual combat was 147 years ago. A police action against smugglers that lasted 4 days. Our own Nethran defense forces haven't fired weapons except in drills for 212 years. And the humans? Every human military officer has either combat experience or trained under someone who does. Every ship crew runs battle drills weekly. Every colony maintains active defense forces. They build redundancy into everything because they expect disaster. Silenth pulled up the most disturbing finding. Master, I found something in their cultural records. They have sayings about war, wisdom passed down through generations. One keeps appearing in different forms. If you want peace, prepare for war. Another, the best victory is the one avoided. They understand warfare at a level we've forgotten. Velcor was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Show me their fleet dispositions. Silenth displayed current human naval deployments. They have 147 warships. That's far fewer than our combined council fleets. But every single one is combat ready. Modern systems, trained crews, battle-tested designs. Our intelligence suggests they could deploy 95% of their forces within 2 weeks. The Kralthians, with their 800 claimed warships, could maybe mobilize 200 in a month. Most of their fleet is outdated or ceremonial. Velcor floated to the window, looking out at the council station. The human ambassador didn't seem afraid, because she had no reason to be afraid. Yes, Master. We threaten them with our size, our numbers, our unity. But none of those things matter if we're not actually willing or able to use them. That is my assessment. The old scholar turned back to his student. This must go before the full council. Not publicly. That would cause panic. But the senior members must know what we're actually proposing to fight. In the Thetkai hive chambers, a different kind of discussion occurred. The hive delegate was actually thousands of small insect-like creatures that formed a collective intelligence. They debated with themselves, different clusters taking different positions. One cluster pointed out the need to maintain council authority. Another calculated the biological cost of war. A third suggested that humanity's rapid expansion threatened their territory. A fourth argued that humans had never shown aggression toward Thetkai interests. The debate continued in buzzing spirals of thought, reaching no consensus. Back in Korthax's chambers, the Kralthian war leader had made his decision. We will show the council that action is necessary. We will conduct a training exercise near human space, a show of strength. When the humans panic and call for protection, the council will see they are not so confident after all. Oninan. Velthar shifted uncomfortably. War leader? Is that wise? The human ambassador? Is bluffing. I know fear when I see it. She was simply too proud to show it. We will call her bluff, and the council will thank us for exposing human weakness. Korthax began issuing orders. 12 Kralthian warships would assemble and conduct exercises near the human colony world designated New Busan. They would perform weapons drills, run tactical scenarios, make their presence impossible to ignore. In the main council chamber, an unofficial gathering was taking place. Delegates spoke in small groups, weighing options. The unity of 3 hours ago was crumbling. The Velkari worried about trade. The Nethran worried about casualties. The Dendari worried about setting precedents for conflict. The Sharan calculated probabilities and found them unfavorable. Only the Kralthians remained convinced that force was the answer. And only a small faction of radical delegates secretly hoped the situation would escalate beyond any peaceful resolution. Silenth presented his findings to the senior council members in a closed session. The reaction was mixed. Some dismissed his concerns as exaggeration. Others began to quietly revise their positions. Perhaps, suggested one of the Valkyrie trade ministers, we should test human resolve with a minor incident. Nothing aggressive, just a presence. See how they actually respond, versus how they threaten to respond. It was meant as a way to gather information. But Korthax, monitoring the discussion from his delegation's chamber, saw it as permission. The training exercise was authorized. 12 Kralthian ships began moving toward human space, and in her embassy office, Park Ji-woo received the intelligence report with a mixture of resignation and determination. She had hoped to avoid this, but if the Council needed a demonstration, humanity would provide one they would never forget. She opened a secure channel to the human colony at New Busan and began typing orders to Commander Choi Soo-bin. The bluff was about to be called. The Kralthian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Busan star system. 12 warships, each one massive and bristling with weapons, their hulls painted in the red and gold of the Kralthian military tradition. On the bridge of the flagship, Commander Korthax studied the tactical display with satisfaction. All ships, assume formation Delta 7, begin active sensor sweeps. Broadcast on all frequencies that we are conducting a scheduled training exercise. His communications officer hesitated. Commander, this system is registered as human colonial territory. Then they will have an excellent view of Kralthian military prowess. Transmit the message. On New Busan, alarms began sounding in the Colonial Defense Headquarters. Commander Choi Soo-bin had been expecting this, or something like it, ever since Ambassador Park's coded warning. She studied the sensor data with calm professional attention. 12 Kralthian warships at the system edge. No aggressive actions yet, but their running hot sensors and weapons are powered up. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel. The Kralthian face that appeared on her screen looked surprised that a human was initiating contact. Choi Soo-bin gave a polite nod. Commander Korthax. This is Commander Choi Soo-bin of the New Busan Defense Force. You are currently in human territorial space. I'm sure this is a navigation error. Not. I'm transmitting updated star charts to help you find your way to the designated neutral exercise zones. Korthax's scales flushed darker. There is no error, human. We are conducting a military training exercise. Your civilian vessels should clear the area for safety. I see. Unfortunately, Commander, this entire system is human territory under the Treaty of Aldebaran. Section 47. Paragraph 12. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to relocate your exercise. Choi's voice remained pleasant, as if discussing weather. We will exercise where we choose. This is not a request for permission. Choi Soo-bin's expression didn't change. I understand, Commander. Please stand by while I consult with higher authority. She muted the channel and turned to her operations officer. Activate all defense platforms. Evacuate the civilian orbital stations to ground shelters. Send the priority signal. The signal was a pre-arranged code that went out on tight beam transmission to 4 nearby human fleet positions. It said simply, Kralthian incursion, New Busan. Show of force required. Korthax moved his fleet deeper into the system. His tactical officer reported civilian ships scattering, orbital facilities going dark. They're running, Commander. The humans are clearing the space, as ordered. Good. Let them see what real military power looks like. Bring us within range of that space station. Weapons lock only. No firing. Just to make the point clear, the flagship's weapons systems began tracking the largest civilian station, now mostly evacuated. On dozens of human colonies, this would be seen as an aggressive act. On New Busan, it was seen as proof that the Kralthians were following their predicted pattern exactly. Choi Soo-bin reopened the channel. Commander Korthax, you are now targeting a civilian facility in sovereign human territory. This is your final warning to withdraw. Or what, human? You have no ships here. Your station is helpless. Perhaps you should contact your superiors on Earth and beg them to ask the Council for mercy. I don't need to contact Earth, Commander. I have all the authority I need right here. That's when the first human destroyer dropped out of FTL, less than 50,000 kilometers from the Kralthian flagship. Then another. Then two more. Korthax stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Where did they come from? 1. They were staged at the nearby relay stations, Commander, his tactical officer reported. They must have been waiting for our arrival. More human ships were arriving every few minutes. Destroyers, frigates, a heavy cruiser. Each one appeared in perfect formation, immediately taking up positions that Korthax's tactical computer was flagging in increasingly alarming colors. Within an hour, 17 human warships had surrounded the Kralthian fleet in a precise geometric pattern. His tactical officer pulled up the formation analysis. Commander, they've created a perfect engagement envelope. Every one of our ships is targeted by at least 2 of theirs. If fighting starts, they can concentrate fire, while our own ships would risk hitting each other. Korthax felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to panic, to call for help from distant Earth, to demonstrate their weakness and isolation. Instead, they had appeared in overwhelming force within an hour. Professional, coordinated, and utterly calm. Choi Subin's face reappeared on his screen. Commander, you now have 17 human warships tracking your fleet. This is not a negotiation. You are in violation of treaty boundaries. You have 1 hour to withdraw. We won't ask twice. Korthax felt his pride warring with his training. His training was screaming that he was in an impossible tactical position. His pride was screaming that backing down would be humiliation. I must consult with Council leadership. You have 1 hour, Commander. Use it wisely. Korthax opened a priority channel back to the Council station. The faces that appeared on his screen were not encouraging. The Velkari Trade Minister looked angry. Velkor looked deeply concerned. Even the Thetkai Hive delegates' buzzing had an agitated quality. War Leader Korthax, the Velkari said, his beak clicking rapidly. What have you done? We approved a training exercise. Not an invasion of human territory. I am conducting the training exercise as authorized. The humans are overreacting, Velkor floated forward in his display. The humans have mobilized 17 warships in under an hour. That is not overreaction. That is preparedness. You have walked into a trap of your own making. We outnumber them. 12 ships against 17. Look at your tactical situation, War Leader. Young Silenth appeared in the background of Velkor's transmission. They have superior positioning, unified command, and modern weapons systems. Your fleet is ceremonial. Theirs is combat-ready. If fighting starts, you will lose half your ships in the first exchange. Korthax's scales were cycling through colors beyond his control now. The Council will support me. We threatened war. We must show strength. No, the Velkari said flatly. We threatened war together. You acted alone. This unauthorized action is yours, War Leader, not the Council's. One by one, the Council representatives disavowed Korthax's action. The Nethran declared it a violation of standing orders. The Velkari called it economic sabotage. The Thetkai refused to reach consensus on supporting it. Only the small radical faction remained silent, hoping desperately that the situation would spiral into actual combat. Korthax watched his political support collapse in real time. Worse, he watched his tactical situation deteriorate. The human ships weren't making threats. They weren't broadcasting demands. They were just there, positioned perfectly, weapons tracking, waiting with a patience that was somehow more terrifying than any aggressive posturing would have been. His communications officer spoke quietly. Commander, 45 minutes have elapsed. In the Council chambers, emergency sessions were erupting everywhere. Delegates who had supported the original threat were now scrambling to distance themselves from this incident. The moderate voices that had been shouted down before were suddenly finding eager listeners. Silenth presented his research to anyone who would listen. showing combat records, analyzing human tactical doctrine, demonstrating that humanity's military was not the weak newcomer force everyone had assumed. Ambassador Park Ji-woo, monitoring everything from her embassy, opened a channel to the council on general broadcast. Her face appeared on screens throughout the station. Honored delegates, I see you're having some difficulty with one of your training exercises. Let me help clarify the situation. She pulled up a tactical display showing the new Busan system. What you're seeing is the difference between theoretical military power and actual military capability. Commander Korthax brought 12 beautiful ships into our territory thinking we would panic. Instead, we responded with 17 combat-ready vessels in perfect formation within 60 minutes. She zoomed in on the formation pattern. Every human colony has a defense force. Every system has pre-positioned assets. Every ship is crewed by personnel who train for actual combat, not ceremonies. This is what preparedness looks like. The display shifted to show human fleet positions across their territory. We have 147 warships. All of them are like the ones you see at New Busan. Modern, ready, crewed by people who understand that space is dangerous and peace requires strength. Ji-woo's expression became more serious. The council has about 4,000 ships on paper, maybe 1,500, that could actually deploy. Of those, perhaps 500 are genuinely combat capable. Your crews are brave but untrained for real war. Your weapons are outdated. Your tactics are theoretical. Your logistics are peacetime constructions that would collapse under sustained operations. She let that sink in for a moment. I'm not saying this to threaten you. I'm saying it because you need to understand reality before someone makes a terrible mistake. Commander Korthax made a small mistake that we can fix. Don't make a big one that we can't. In the new Busan system, time was running out. Korthax knew he had no good options. If he attacked, he would lose. If he withdrew, he would be humiliated. If he stayed, eventually the humans would make the decision for him. His second-in-command, Velthar, approached quietly. Commander, there is no shame in living to fight another day. Our warriors need not die for pride. Korthax looked at his tactical display one more time. The human ships remained in perfect formation, patient as death itself. He thought about generations of Kralthian warriors who had died in glorious battle. Then he thought about dying in a pointless skirmish that would be remembered only as a failure. All ships, he said quietly. Disengage weapons. Plot course to neutral space. We are withdrawing. Commander Choi Subin watched the Kralthian fleet begin its retreat. She opened a channel to Ambassador Park. Diplomat, the soldiers have done our job. Now you do yours. The council chamber was very different from the last time Park Ji-woo had entered it. The platforms were arranged the same way. But the atmosphere had changed completely. Where before, there had been unified outrage. Now there was confusion, fear, and the beginnings of genuine doubt. Ji-woo walked in with the same calm confidence. But this time, the delegates watched her differently. She wasn't the arrogant newcomer anymore. She was the ambassador whose military had just surrounded a council fleet without breaking a sweat. Korthax was not present. He had been quietly removed from command and recalled to his homeworld. In his place sat a much older Kralthian named Thek-Nor, whose scales showed the silver of age and wisdom rather than the bright crimson of youth. The Velkari trade minister, Ket-Ral, spoke first. Ambassador Park, we appreciate you joining us again. The council wishes to discuss the recent incident at New Busan. Of course, Ji-woo said, taking her position on the human platform. Though, I think, incident is a generous word. Your war leader invaded our territory and threatened our civilians. Former war leader, Thek-Nor corrected quietly. His actions were not authorized by the Kralthian government or the council as a whole. I see. So, it was just one commander acting alone? Not a test of human resolve authorized by this council? Ji-woo's tone made it clear. She knew better. There was uncomfortable silence. Velkor, the old Nethran scholar, floated forward. Ambassador, we would like to propose a private session. You, myself, Trademaster Ketral, and the Thetkai Hive delegate. We need to speak frankly, without the posturing that public sessions require. Ji-Woo considered this. Very well. Where? The meditation chamber. It's neutral ground, small, private. 20 minutes later, 4 beings sat in a simple room designed for quiet contemplation. Ji-Woo took a cushion on the floor. Sitting cross-legged, the aliens arranged themselves according to their preferences. The Thetkai delegate, thousands of insects forming a roughly humanoid shape, settled into a standing position. Ketral perched on a low platform. Velcor floated in his anti-gravity field. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, Ji-Woo broke the silence. You threatened us hoping we'd be scared. We weren't. You tested us hoping we'd fail. We didn't. Now what? Ketral's beak clicked several times before he spoke. Now we find ourselves in an uncomfortable position. The Council's authority has been challenged. But more importantly, we've learned that our understanding of human capabilities was severely flawed. Your understanding or your assumptions? Ji-Woo asked. Both. Perhaps, Velcor admitted. Young Silenth showed us research we should have done ourselves. Your military history is remarkable. Terrifying, actually. We come from a death world. Ji-Woo said simply. Everything on Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned to survive. Then, we spent 10,000 years fighting each other. We learned to be very, very good at war. It's not something we're proud of. It's just what we are. The Thetkai's buzzing formed words. The Hive has debated extensively. Some clusters fear human expansion. Others note humans have never shown aggression toward us. We remain divided. Let me ask you something. Ji-Woo leaned forward. What do you think would have happened if the shooting had actually started at New Busan? Ketral answered. The 17 human ships would have destroyed the 12 Krothian ships. Completely. Probably in less than 20 minutes. 15 minutes, Ji-Woo corrected. We ran the simulations. And then what? War, Velcor said quietly. Full council mobilization against humanity. And then? Ji-Woo pressed. The room was silent. Finally, Ketral spoke the truth they all knew. We would lose. Maybe not immediately. We have more ships, more resources, more territory. But we would lose. Ji-Woo nodded. We've run every scenario, every simulation, every variation. The best case for the Council is a victory so costly that your alliance breaks apart from the strain. Billions dead. Economies collapsed. Centuries of rebuilding. And that's the best case. The worst case is complete defeat in 6 months. How? Velcor asked. Even with superior training and tactics, you're outnumbered. Because you would fight a war the way you've always fought wars. Limited engagements. Negotiated pauses. Rules about civilian targets and proportional response. You'd treat it like a large police action that happens to involve multiple species. Ji-Woo stood and walked to the window. We would fight it the way we fought every existential war on Earth. Total commitment. Complete mobilization. Every colony becomes a fortress. Every ship becomes a weapon. Every adult becomes a soldier. We would hit your logistics, your supply lines, your communication networks. We would make it impossible for your alliance to coordinate, and we would keep fighting until you surrendered or we died. The silence was heavy. That's what Deathworld species do, Ji-Woo continued. We don't fight wars like games. We fight them like survival. Because for most of our history, that's what they were. Why tell us this? Ketral asked. You've just revealed your entire strategy. Because I don't want it to happen. Ji-Woo turned back to face them. That's the point. We know we'd win, but we don't want to. Do you know how many humans died in our last global war on Earth? 85 million. That was with primitive weapons by galactic standards. A modern war in space? The casualties would be unimaginable. She returned to her cushion. Here's what you don't understand about humans. We treasure our friends more than we fear our enemies. Look at our history. Germany and France fought each other for centuries. Now they're closest allies. Japan and Korea had brutal conflicts. Now, they're partners. America and Britain fought a revolutionary war. Now they're inseparable. We're offering you what we wish someone had offered us. The chance to skip the war and go straight to the peace. Velcor floated closer. What are you proposing? Real partnership. Not human subordination. Not council dominance. Equals working together. Ji-Woo pulled out her datapad and displayed terms. We'll slow our expansion to address your concerns about territory. We'll share navigation data in exchange for equivalent information from council species. We'll participate in joint defense initiatives. We'll open trade on fair terms. In exchange, Ketterl asked, full council membership with equal voting rights, mutual defense pacts, technology sharing agreements, recognition that humanity isn't a subordinate species to be managed, but a partner to be respected. The Thetkai buzzed. And if council refuses? Ji-Woo's expression was calm but serious. Then we continue as we have been. We defend our territory. We grow at our own pace. We don't bend to threats. Eventually, probably within a generation, we'll be stronger than the entire council combined. At that point, you'll have to negotiate from a position of weakness instead of equality. That sounds like a threat, Velcor said. It's a timeline. We don't want to dominate you. We want to join you. But we'll only join as equals, not subjects. The choice is yours. Make that happen now, while we can build something together. Or wait until the power balance shifts so far that cooperation becomes difficult. Ketral calculated silently for several moments. The economic advantages of partnership are substantial. Human colonies need goods we produce. We need materials from human mining operations. Trade would benefit both sides significantly. The knowledge exchange would be valuable, Velcor added. Human practical experience in war could improve our defense capabilities. Our theoretical science could accelerate human research. Together, we would both be stronger. The Thetkai's buzzing intensified as internal debate raged. Finally, consensus emerged. The Hive agrees. Partnership offers more benefit than conflict. But implementation will be complex. It always is, Ji-Woo smiled slightly. But it's worth the effort. May I tell you a story from Earth? The aliens indicated interest. After our most devastating war, the victorious nations did something remarkable. Instead of crushing the defeated enemies, they helped rebuild them. Invested in their economies. Supported their recovery. Within a generation, former enemies became allies. Why? Because they learned that stable, prosperous partners are better than broken, resentful subjects. She stood again. That's what humanity offers the Council. Not dominance, partnership. We bring military strength that could defend against external threats. You bring established trade networks, scientific knowledge, and diplomatic experience. Together, we could build something better than either of us could, alone. Ketral's feathers ruffled thoughtfully. We would need to present this to the full council. Many will resist. The Kralthians especially will see it as rewarding human aggression. The Kralthians respect strength, Ji-Woo said. Show them the tactical analyses. Show them what New Busan demonstrated. Warriors understand when they're outmatched. They'll respect honest assessment more than polite lies. Velcor asked the question they were all thinking. Why do you want this, Ambassador? If you're as strong as you say, why not just take what you want? Ji-Woo was quiet for a moment. Because we remember what it costs. Every human carries the genetic memory of 10,000 years of war. We know what it does to people. The trauma, the loss, the waste. We finally learned to stop fighting each other and work together. It saved our species. She looked at each of them. We don't want to teach you that lesson the hard way. We want to offer you the wisdom we bought with rivers of blood. Peace isn't weakness. Partnership isn't surrender. Cooperation isn't submission. These are strengths, not failures. The room was quiet, except for the Thetkai's contemplative buzzing. I'll take your proposal to the full council, Velkor said finally. With my endorsement. What happened at New Busan proved you're not bluffing. This conversation proves you're offering genuine partnership. I'll support it from the economic perspective, Ketral added. The trade benefits, alone, justify cooperation. The Hive will advocate for partnership, the Thetkai said. Jiwoo bowed respectfully to each of them. Thank you. That's all I ask. Let reason guide the decision, not pride or fear. 3 days later, the full council voted. It wasn't unanimous. The Kralthians abstained, which was as close to agreement as their pride would allow. Several smaller species voted against, fearing human dominance. But the majority approved the partnership framework. Humanity gained full council membership. Trade agreements were signed. Technology sharing began. Joint defense planning committees were established. That evening, Jiwoo sat in her office composing a message to her daughter on Earth. Her hands moved quickly over the keyboard. My dear one, you asked if there would be war. The answer is no. We showed them we could fight, then showed them we'd rather not. Turns out, the best way to win a war is to make the other side realize they don't want to fight it. I'll be home in a few months. We have so much to celebrate, not because we won, but because we all chose peace. Love. Mom. She sent the message and turned to look at the stars. Humanity had come so far from that violent blue world where they'd spent millennia learning to survive. They'd brought that hard-won knowledge to the galaxy, not as a weapon but as wisdom. The Galactic Council had threatened all-out war. Ambassador Park Ji-woo had hardly cared, not because the threat wasn't real, but because she knew something more important. The strongest warriors were the ones who knew when not to fight. And humanity, born in violence and forged in conflict, had finally learned that peace was the greatest victory of all.